It's pretty wild to think about how one single super simple object, something you could just hold in your hand, could mean everything to people thousands of years ago. I mean, how does something go from being a kid's toy 1 minute to a direct message from the gods the next? Well, we're going to dive right into the story of this incredible little object.
So, what's the answer? Well, it all comes down to this one small, kind of peculiar bone. For thousands of years, this was basically the main way people interacted with fate. Seriously. It's the one thing that connects the dots between just playing a game, talking to the gods, and even the journey into the afterlife. All right, so to really get this, we've got to start with the object itself. And trust me, it's a pretty fascinating piece of, well, natural engineering. So this, right here, this is the astragalos. You might also hear it called the talus bone. Basically, it's the ankle bone, usually from a sheep or a goat. And because its shape is so unique, people started picking them up and using them for, well, everything. We're talking from the Neolithic period all the way through the Hellenistic era. They've been found in homes, temples, and, yep, even in graves. So what makes it so special? Well, its natural shape is what makes it a perfect, get this, four-sided die. It's not like our modern six-sided dice at all. See, it's got two broad sides and two narrow sides that it can land on. The ends are rounded, so it's impossible for it to land there. And each one of these four faces had its own name and value. For example, Prines was a 4, and Chios, which they sometimes called the dog, was a 1. And here's where it gets really interesting. Because of that weird shape, this was not a game of pure even odds. The astragalos is naturally weighted. You've got about a 38% chance of it landing on one of those two wider, more stable sides. And those sides, they usually had the middle of the road values, like 3 and 4. But landing on one of the narrow, much less stable sides, way harder. The odds for that were way down, only about a 12% chance. And because it was so rare, those sides usually got the most important values. The highest, a 6, and the lowest, a 1. And that imbalance, that was absolutely central to everything, from how they played games to how they believed they could see the future. Okay, so let's start with its most common use, as a gaming piece. But as you're about to see, we're not just talking about simple fun pastimes here. The stakes were high, right from the start.
I mean, check out this quote. This is from the Iliad, one of the most famous stories ever told. In it, the hero Patroclus admits that when he was a kid, he actually killed a friend in a fit of rage over a game of knucklebones. Wow. So yeah, right from the very beginning, these games were serious business. We're talking intense competition and incredibly high emotional stakes.
And it wasn't all just about luck either. A lot of these games took incredible dexterity. One popular one was pretty much exactly like modern-day jacks. You toss one bone up, try to scoop up the others, and then catch the first one. Then there was another one called skeletal in Turkey, which was more like marbles. You'd use a heavier bone as a shooter to try and knock your opponent's bones out of a circle. It took some serious skill. And this is really where the story gets deep. That randomness, the way the bones would just tumble unpredictably, they didn't see that as just chaos. To them, it was an opening. It shows you this whole worldview where what we call chance was seen as the gods making their will known. That random roll was basically a doorway for deities to speak directly to people. So, naturally, this belief turned the astragalos from a simple toy into a really powerful tool for divination. The official name for this practice, by the way, is astragalomancy. And this wasn't some private superstition people did at home. Oh no. In places like Anatolia, it was a full-blown public institution. They had these giant stone pillars, sometimes over 1.5 meters tall, set up right in public squares. You'd go up, roll 5 of these bones, look at the result, and then find that exact combination on the pillar to get your answer. The answers were often even written like a god was speaking right to you. And if you want some incredible, hard proof of this, just look at what archaeologists found at Marisha in Israel. It's amazing. They uncovered a huge stash of astragaloi that had Greek words carved right on them. Words like Nike for victory, and the names of gods and goddesses like Aphrodite, Hera, and Eros. It's like every single roll was literally a direct message to, or from, a specific deity. Okay, so let's recap. The astragalos was a toy, and it was an oracle. But it had another job too. It was a symbol of your status, a way to show off your place in society. So, while most people were just using regular old sheep or goat bones, the wealthy, well, they had imitation ones made from all sorts of fancy materials. Archaeologists have found these beautiful examples made of bronze, ivory, even cast glass in these amazing colors like amber, cobalt blue, and deep purple. These weren't just for games, they were basically little pieces of art, and for sure, they were status symbols. But here's the interesting twist. Even just owning a set of real bones could be its own kind of status symbol. And you might be asking, why? Well, it's simple. It meant your family could afford to eat meat, like sheep or goat, all the time. Just having a bunch of these bones lying around was a subtle way of saying, yeah, we're doing pretty well.
And this all brings us to the final and maybe the most profound role of the astragalos. As a charm, a companion for the afterlife.
I mean, archaeologists find huge numbers of these bones in ancient tombs all over, and their placement is always so deliberate. For instance, in one tomb in Populonia, they found 99 bones laid over the feet of an 8-year-old boy, probably his favorite toys. But then in another site, Veronone, more than 100 bones were put right at the entrance of a woman's tomb, almost like a protective barrier. And at a place called Lucifero, they found thousands of them surrounding bodies, like some kind of mystical shield.
And just so you can really wrap your head around the scale of this belief, at just one site, the Lucifero necropolis, archaeologists have found nearly 9,000 of these knuckle bones in the graves. This wasn't some rare, quirky thing. It was a deeply, deeply ingrained part of how these people understood and faced death.
So when you step back and look at it, this one single, humble bone connected the most fundamental parts of being human. It was a toy for a child, an oracle for someone seeking answers, and a protective shield for the dead. It shows us a world where play, faith, and death weren't these separate categories like we see them today. A simple game was also a prayer, and the pieces of that game could protect you in the afterlife. The physical and the spiritual were totally intertwined.
It really makes you stop and think, right? I mean, in our world today, with all our complicated technology and gadgets, do we have anything like that? Is there any single object that holds that much meaning? Something that's for fun, for faith, and for facing the end, all at the same time? What would that even look like for us?